I'm going to restart the recording here. Okay, and we're back. You can hear me. We're good to go. I'll jump back into the presentation here. So as I was saying, and I hope you guys all followed, right now we're going to cover the intramission STO, and we're going to do this because in this case we need to track shipments. So there's going to be a direct impact with this other module called transportation management. Okay, so the actions that we perform here when we create the STO are going to directly impact another module. Remember when we did the packing for the inbound delivery document? Well, we're going to have to perform the packing in the outbound delivery document in this case, but also the fields that we fill in while creating the STO are going to have a critical impact in that module as well. Now, before I even continue, I want to understand from the point of view here of the experts in liquidation, what is the chance of our students being sent to the mission to be performing the intramission scenarios, basically the STO, right? Creating an STO. I know this is the task or the role of the local supply chain coordinator, so I doubt the creation of the STO will be something that our students are going to be doing. That's why also, if we see here, I'm going to exit this presentation really quick. And if we see here in the demo, in the cover page that I have for this specific exercise, my transactions begin at review a stock transport order, okay, not at create them. Although I'm going to create one now anyway, so we can go through it, we can understand it. We also have experts in the room that are very familiar with these processes and they can bring valuable insight. But I just want to understand how many or if any students will be creating stock transport orders. Well, this will be reserved for the logistic supply chain coordinator and not the other users. Okay, that would be like my first question out there. The same thing will go for the intermission, right? We have to create a stock transport request, then a stock transport order. And since I'm going to be spending time on those transactions, I just want to know how quickly or slowly should I go through them? Okay, so that's my first comment there. Yes? I heard someone jumping in. I know maybe this may not be that easy to answer, but just in case. Okay, we have the transactions that we're performing. I just want to know exactly how in depth. Remember, yes? Okay. So remember yesterday with the addition to stock, we talked about the roles FA15, FA16. These are things that those that are deployed will not be performing those transactions. The same thing may happen here with the global supply chain coordinator and the local supply chain coordinator, just to keep that in mind. Nico?
Yeah, with Lucia during the downsizing of Darfur last year, moving items from region to the logistic headquarters in Al-Fashar, several of those movements has been performed. So also, I think into a liquidation scenario, it could happen.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. So this scenario is very probable, especially in Darfur, for example. If you're bringing things from Nyala or any other location, they're going to require transportation. So these things are very common and they will happen. We're going to be transporting goods from those locations to the main headquarters, let's say, like you said, in El Fasher. But the creation of the STO itself, right? What I'm going to do now with the ME21N, is this something that the people that are deployed there are going to be performing, or this is reserved to a particular person, role?
Brian.
Yes.
Lucia.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, everyone. Yeah, it's the role is as you already said is the local supply chain coordinator for the information transfer. So it's already assigned to the mission. Of course, I don't know the stage because this is a decision that can be taken because maybe to transfer from one sector to another one, for example, from Nyala to El Fasher, maybe at that stage someone can be missed in mission and then this role can be given to someone else. I don't know. This is something that has to decide later. for the intermission transfer, there is the segregation of role in UNGSC. So in any case, always the local supply chain coordinator will do the STR, and it's UNGSC that in any case will do the transaction. So maybe the role of local supply chain coordinator is required. The global supply chain coordinator is up to UNGSC in any case. I don't know if I was clear.
Yes, that is very clear.
If I'm not, please tell me. I don't know. Okay.
That was very clear for me, and I think that's exactly what I wanted to know, right? So some roles will be, of course, already determined and will be performed by someone who's assigned to that, just like yesterday with the FA15, FA16 roles. Same thing here. Nonetheless, although our exercise is only showing you how to, or only giving you the steps in the cover page to perform the transactions once the STO is created, when you go to the body of the exercise, you'll realize as your first few steps that we are explaining to you how to create the STO regardless, okay? So even if it's not in the summary of the data, it's in the STO. The good thing about the environment that we're going to be using today, which is a different one from the one we've been using so far, right now we're selecting the T5E environment because that's the one that doesn't ask me to have all the approvals beforehand. We're able to move through with the creation of the STO, the same thing as the STR, without having any financial implications block me and without having another 5 or 6 users going through transactions too. So we're going to be using a different environment. It's also explained in the exercise here how to log into it. It's basically just selecting a different line from the training system. And then the good thing about this one is that we only have one user and we only have to log in once instead of every time we switch roles. Okay, at least for these two exercises, that's what's going to happen. So before I get started with the transaction, just a quick overview for the intramission transfer. When we're talking about the intramission transfer type ZINT, like we're seeing here, what we're talking about is the transfer of supplies from one location in a mission to another location. And I think the example of Niala and El Fasher in Darfur is the best example when we're talking about intra-mission transfers, ZINT. Now, we have a brief description here. The LSCC, Local Supply Chain Coordinator of the mission, creates the STO for transporter without reference to an approved STR. We'll see the STR and the impact of that in the next transaction. You have the job aids that are relevant for this as well here, and then the instructions of how to log into this specific training environment. Okay, so let's proceed maybe now with the login. And the first time, see this one is the same. I just have to copy one time and paste it one time in the training environment. All other user IDs are the same for all other users that we have here, and the password is still the same one. So I'm gonna start logging in now, and I'm going to start performing the transaction. So what's going to be really new for you guys right now is going to be the creation of the STO and also the new fields that now have an integration with TM directly. And we're going to make emphasis in each one of those and make sure we understand how each one of those fields is going to impact not only TM, but also what we're doing later on in the system. Okay, so here's where the difference occurs. Okay, we are selecting training system just like we did before, but now in the list of training environments that we have, instead of selecting the T1E that we always have so far, we're going to go with T5E. Okay, this time around. It's also, as you see in the exercise, when we look at the body, it's going to explain it to you just the same. Okay, T5E, and we can log in. So let's go back here, and I'm going to do the same thing as I've been doing this morning. First thing, get rid of the sound, and I'm going to do something else that is also very important. Here, I'm going to first deactivate this and apply, but also I want to show the visualization options here, okay? If I select this visualization option 1 under interaction design, I'm going to just click on this checkbox here, show keys within drop-down list. What this is going to do is when I'm selecting the type of STO, I'm not only going to see the definition of it, but I'm also going to see the nomenclature, for example, ZINT. So I understand that I'm selecting the right one. For you to be able to see it, this is a good option to select, okay? Show keys within drop-down list. You select it, you apply, and now we got rid of both the sound and we added these these items that we can see in the dropdown. And you'll see right away what I'm talking about. I'm going to paste the user and let's log in. And here we are. So what is our T code now to create the stock transport order? As you see, ME21, N. Let's go here and let's do that first. Okay, so we have here create purchase order, as you can see at the top. And then we have a drop-down menu that's going to show us the available options. You see next to the word rations, ZRAT, ZMSS, that wouldn't have been there if I wouldn't have selected the visualization option. So you would have had to guess, or maybe by looking at the definition, understand that this within mission STO is actually the ZINT option that we're talking about. Okay, so it's very helpful to select that option before you get started. And this is the type of STO I'm going to select and work on. Once you select one, automatically the template changes and it tells you to start putting in fields that are mandatory. Actually, I just selected the option, and already, if you realize, at the bottom of my screen, it tells me enter purchasing group. And it signals it as a critical error, right? That I need to enter this purchasing group. Oh, and let's see what this means before we just start adding data around and around. The good thing about the STO is that every time you add data and you click on enter, the system is going to warn you of another critical step that is missing. And we'll see that in a second. And at any time, people like Lucia, for example, since I consider you to be one of the experts in the room on STOs and intermission and intramission transfers, if I'm explaining something in terms of, for example, purchasing group, just jump in at any time and clarify what I'm saying. In this particular case, when we're adding a purchasing group here, and I can click on the matchbox so we have an idea of what we're talking about, we're going to select a purchasing group that is actually going to be the one responsible to process this transaction, this STO, correct? When we do the intermission, we'll see how we have to add one purchasing group for Brindisi, GSC, and then we'll have to add another purchasing group for the mission that is receiving the goods. In this particular case, since we're just using one mission, we just have to add one purchasing group. It's important that we add it because when we go through the release or approval process, if we don't select the correct purchasing group, we're not going to see the STO created. We're not going to be able to approve it. It's just like with the reservations. When we created one, if we didn't have the right user to go into their inbox and see the list of reservations, we would have never known that something has been requested and we can't approve it. Now, with the TM integration system, this purchasing group is also linked to what is called a planning group in TM. And what this does is by adding the correct purchasing group here, there's the correct planner group in TM that's going to be able to see that this transaction was created and now there's a request for transportation. So it's very important that the purchasing group added is the correct one. Now, whether you're going to do this or not when you're deployed, at least we understand what this means because we need to have an idea of what it is.
Brian?
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to thank Pietro. He just posted in the chat that just for statistics, in Minujust liquidation from June 2019 up until today, 55 outbound STRs have been generated in order to fulfill the mission's requirement. So indeed, in this process, it's kind of like necessary to show all these generation of documents for STO, STR. Over to you. Thank you very much, Pietro.
Yes, thank you. That definitely gives us a sense of reality, right, when we're looking at this transaction. So we're going to add the purchasing group. You see it in the body of the exercise, but you also see it in the demo, in the cover page, sorry. You have it here, purchasing group. You'll have your own, and also with the purchasing organization, the same as the material, the Incoterm location, supply plant, receiving plant. So all that info is also in your cover page and in the body of the exercise. So let's start with the first purchasing group, which is T90. If, for example, we wanted to search for it here, we would also be able to see, okay, in this case, it's telling me that I don't have that one available in the matchbox, but I'm going to add it here. Okay, I'm going to select. And it tells me now another warning message. You see right here, we have the mission has appeared. So if I add T90 as the purchasing group, I see unmiss is the one that I'm adding as the purchasing group here. It tells me now another error message. Please enter supplying plant. So that's good. It's already telling me the second field that I need to complete. It's the supplying plant. In this case, if UNMISS is the purchasing group and we're talking about an intra-mission transfer, then the supplying plant should be the one linked to UNMISS as well, SS10. Okay, we can simply copy and paste it here and click on enter and see what happens. So right away, it identifies SS10 as the UN Mission Republic of Sudan. So that's UNMISS. So right now we're fine so far. We can click on enter, see what else the system is telling us to add. And it seems like nothing more, right? It's not requiring us to add anything more at this stage. But let's go back to the body of our exercise and let's see what else we need to add here. So navigate to the delivery invoice tab. Okay, remember that we have a series of tabs that we always have to navigate through to see the additional information. We're becoming familiar with these along the training. We have delivery invoice all the way to the left at the beginning. And when we select it, we see that we have the option to add the Incoterm and also the Incoterm location. So in this particular case, because this is an intra-mission scenario, we always use one type of Incoterm. And now one thing that has to be clear is that the Incoterms for STOs or STRs are not the Incoterms as we understand them in scenarios of raising a shopping cart and selecting FCA, FOB, DAT, and so on. This is strictly for the TM module so that we understand that only the mission that is requesting the transfer is the same one that is in charge of processing it. So that's the difference here. It's not the Incoterm as we know it in the commercial context. Right, we're only adding the Incoterm here because it helps the TM module understand what type of transaction we're doing. And in this case, it's the intra-mission transaction. We also have to add the destination location, which you have in your cover page, which is this one here. Okay, we can copy and paste that one too directly into the destination. And this is going to directly link this Incoterm with this destination as the, sorry, the final destination in TM. So these will definitely have an impact in the TM module, and we need to add them here. If we don't add them correctly, we'll see that since we're not going to dive into the TM module because that would just be too much for you guys already. I just want you to understand we have to do this, but we're not going to see the direct impact in TM that this is going to have. Okay, I'm just telling you right now what are the integration fields you need to consider. Let's see what else we have to do in terms of the body and the transactions. So once we do that, what we do is we add the materials that we have. In this case, I only added one. I want to make sure we run through this exercise and we're able to actually dive into the intermission one as well. So I'm going to add the material from my cover page, and then I'm going to follow every step to make sure that I'm adding the correct information requested in the STO and that is required. So first thing, go to my cover page, select my material. Now I know for those of you who are experts in this, you're going to realize that we're creating an entire STO just to transfer an expendable. And I understand it's the easiest one to transfer right now in the training environment. We added the material here. And we say that, first of all, it tells me here that the material does not exist and is not active. Well, let's see what happens. Maybe it's because I haven't added any other information in this particular case. Because it's been working so far. So I'm adding my PO quantity here.
Brian?
Yes.
Gianluca Marazzo is asking whether this STO is performed by the requesting mission.
Okay, so in this particular case, what we have is the thing is the requesting mission and the receiving mission is the same one. We have to think about it like this. So yeah, whoever is requesting it is the requester and also the receiver. So yeah, they're raising it. It's the mission that is requesting it that is raising this STO. You'll see in the intermission transfers, when you raise the STR, you have a requester, but then you have another entity that processes the request. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, it was clear because it's INTRA, right? INTRA within the same mission.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm adding the material here, and let's see. I'm going to move on to my next step in the exercise, which tells me to add the plant, in this case, SS10, the quantity and the storage location 5101, Again, issuing storage location as well. And let's see what each one of these storage location means. So let's go back to our transaction at our plant SS10. Okay, we'll click on that. And let's see now the storage location. We have a field here for storage location. And if I scroll over to the right, we'll see that we have more fields, but I want you guys to pay attention to that storage location column here. And then as we go on, we have issuing storage location, okay? So we have two different storage locations that we have to add. The one that is issuing the goods and the one that is receiving the goods. So the issuing storage location has to be different from the one that we are adding right at the beginning, which in a sense here is the one that is receiving it, okay? Since the plant is the same, all we have to focus on is the storage location. So if everything is correct, right now we would just copy 5104 for the issuing and 5101 for the receiving. You can always go to the cover page and make sure this is the case. See, 5104 is the supplying versus the 5101 receiving. Let's go and add 5104 here. Okay, and let's go. I don't like that warning message at the bottom. It wasn't giving me that during the test, but still I'm going to go on and see if that message is going to disappear at some point by adding my storage locations and so on. Okay, it does still tell me that it does not exist or is not activated. I know they have played around with the system at some point, and maybe I have to look for a different storage location. Maybe that's the case, or a different material in the storage location. Okay, let's see if we can do that. Okay, nonetheless, it's telling me that it's allowing me to proceed. I'm going to check anyway, but before I do that, let's make sure all the fields are populated first, the ones that are required. We go back to the body of our exercise, and we keep scrolling down. We can add a delivery date. In this case, we can add today's date, or we can add the today's date or a month ahead, which could also make sense depending on when you're requesting the goods to be transferred. So at this point, it's the date that you would be requesting the goods to be transferred. I'm going to add today's date. And then when we click on enter, the STO should be ready to be created, and then I can just save and the STO is generated. Now that'll be the moment of truth when I create it, but I don't think this message here, see? Not possible to determine shipping data for this material and does not exist or is not activated. So I may have to look for another one before I finalize this. Okay, so bear with me for 1 second and I can check and see what is available. MMBE, and maybe this also can help us all understand a bit more how to use the system. So I'm going to check using my material here if I have it in any sort of storage location in SS10, okay, or if it actually even exists. There were some of these before, but now it seems like there aren't. I'm not even going to write down a storage location. Maybe I'm lucky and there's something somewhere. And there is, okay, that's good news. And I want to make sure why it's not, why it's telling me that error message. So I'm looking at 5104, and I should have 82 pieces here under the 5104, the new spares, okay? So that means I should be fine to be able to transfer these. I heard something in the back. I don't know if somebody wants to intervene or if I'm maybe not being heard correctly.
It's me, Lucia.
Yes.
If I can, it's just for the PAD problem. I think that it's related to a PAD that has been replaced with a new one. So the system recognizes that, I don't know if this works in the environment, I think so, because the STO is a purchasing document at the end. So it's built in a way that if you are using an old PAD that is not anymore in the material master data, the system blocks you. So this means that the PAD, even if the goods is the same, but it's referring to the old one, so you have to check and replace the PAD with the current one. This is I think this is the reason why the STO doesn't work, the system is blocking you, because the PAD is not linked anymore to the material master data. Someone changed how can I say, move with the new one.
Okay, so in a sense, I could probably check. I don't know if I can check with the T-code IE0 Two, if maybe this material will still give me the new document or not, or maybe I can proceed. Based on what you're saying, I won't be able to proceed with this material here, correct? If I keep using this one.
Yeah, correct. You have to use another PID. If you have in stock another PID that you can use, maybe this can work. I don't know, for example, a computer that you have in stock in Amis plant and that storage location. I don't know if there is something else that you already put there. So maybe the system allows you to proceed.
Okay, I can check different items. This is going to be quite a wild guess. But see, okay, we have here, this is for the vehicle. Let's see if I can add a SS10. At least it's not telling me that it doesn't exist. It's just telling me about these storage locations. Now, the problem is going to be where does this particular piece of equipment exist, right? So let's go back and see if I can do the same thing I was doing before, but now with a different material. And see, we have this one in on order stock, but it doesn't seem to be in the same one. So, all right, great. So this is what happens with the training environment, right? When there's updates and changes, things like this happen right on the go. And let's see, unless somebody is, and this maybe is a message out to either if Sol is there or Daniel or Elena, if you guys can check in the meantime in the environment, if there's something there, I can do so myself. I just don't want to waste too much time on that. Maybe I can check during the break and we can keep explaining how to do this. And during the break, I'll just jump in and see if I can find a material. All right, so we don't waste the time.
I will try in the meantime. Right, okay.
Okay, because these are things you just can't plan for, honestly. If there's an update in the training environment, it happens from one day to the next, and then suddenly everything you prepared goes haywire. Okay, so I can get rid of this last line here. And let's just go reviewing, deselect the items, what we've done so far, okay? So, and make sure that there's nothing left to do in the body of the exercise here either. Okay, so no, at this point we would just be saving. Let me see if maybe by the screenshots that I have here, I can use one of these materials instead. If that works, that'll save my day. Okay, so if I go back here, we have the 301. We definitely, that one doesn't exist. So let's use the bottom one, 76243. Okay, 12. Okay, let's see if that one works. And let's enter plant SS10. Enter quantity. Let's do that one too. You know what? At the same time, I'm just going to get rid of the top one so it doesn't interfere. Yes, and let's just storage location. Okay, so again, this was the not the issuing but the receiving. So quickly, I'm just going to check and say receiving is 5101 and the other one is 5104. And let's see the issuing 5104. And let's see. Okay, this looks better.
Yeah,
right.
Roland just checked and he said that the PID was okay. Thank you, Roland.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Okay, but perfect. I have to say, you know, thank God for the screenshots and the exercise in this case. I was able to find that one quickly. Okay, so that one works for us. We're still dealing with a spare part, so really not much has changed. And the last step was that, right? We made sure, let's just review again what we have. Now, maybe you don't realize this if you're new to this, but you see the item here and you see I can collapse everything that I'm seeing on screen, and some things may be collapsed, and when you're doing your exercise, you're wondering, where's that tab that Brian was talking about, right? So make sure that everything is expanded for the header. So we see the tabs here that we were talking about before for the items, and there's even a detail for the items at the bottom too, okay, with confirmations and so on. So if we open up our header, let's keep that one open. Let's remember the major fields. First, the organization data. We had the purchasing group for UNMIS because that's the one that's going to be in charge of approving and releasing this STO, and then in TM being able to plan transportation. Our company code was added automatically, United Nations there. Then we went to delivery invoice and we added our DAP and our destination. So in this case, we're adding our final destination here, and the DAP, remember, it's not a commercial term. It's just a way for the TM module to understand how to process this particular transaction and understand that it's an intramission transfer, and the responsibility is of the plant that is requesting it and receiving it. So in order to plan transportation, it's the same plant that is responsible to do all that work. And that's why this is key and important to add. Besides that, all other fields in this case, and unless I'm wrong, Lucia, this should be it in terms of what is actually necessary to populate in the STO when we're first creating it. Unless there's anything else, let me know. But that's as far as I know.
No, it's okay. We only put the, if someone, but this is a free text. If you want to put some note in the text on
right here.
See? Yeah, correct. If you want to explain which is the transfer, whatever, but it's for office note. How can I say? It's not mandatory. So this is what we do. We generally do, but nothing else.
Okay, perfect.
If you open item details, let's see in the item details.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can check account condition. Let me see condition.
Account assignment?
Yeah, it's correct. Okay. So we can see here the fund center, the functional area, whatever, to check if it's the financial transaction. We are using the checking again the fund center, the fund, and then if you see condition.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, it's 0 because I think this is a old value, so it's not budget relevant, so there is no cost or no price to be added. Just to as information, it's okay.
Okay, and now, thank you, Lucia. So now that you're mentioning this condition tab, right, and the price and the value, because we're not mentioning much this because I don't know how much it concerns the students in terms of the transaction, but since you made reference to checking it, now is this something that if, for example, would become important for a different type of transaction? Because in this case, we're talking about a ZINT. It's an intramission transfer. This shouldn't be budget relevant because we're transferring from same fund centers, right? So it should always be not budget relevant. There'll be cases when it will be maybe, and there will be a value. Or that only happens when there's different fund center locations that we're transferring items to. Because if I remember correctly in our presentation, there is another scenario that says transfer between tech units, and it's an exceptional process. It's something we really have never performed in the system, but I don't know if that makes reference to this one specifically. So we would maybe create an STO and have that, or is this a different case scenario? Are we always going to be talking about non-budget relevant scenarios when we're talking about intramission? Is this something that should concern somebody creating this transaction or not? Okay, so I'm just going to leave that one out there. Okay, and maybe we can come back to it later. We've processed and we have all the information. Okay, according to Lucia, also we're good to go. So we should be able to save, as the exercise says, and we should have created our STO. Okay, it says system message issued. Would you want to save your document? Let's say yes. And we have our document number that, of course, again, now we should take note of to make sure that we have the proper document there. So this is the STO number that we have. And let's see what else we have to do in terms of the exercise. Okay, so we'd be here, we saved, and now we get our final STO. Now what we have to do is release this STO. Okay, so as the local supply chain coordinator performs the release of the STO created, in this case, the STO is subject to a single step of approval by local supply chain coordinator to indicate that the next steps outbound delivery can take place. Okay, so just like we were releasing tasks in a notification and we were releasing the notification, we have to also release the STO. In a sense, we're saying it's okay to go and we're okay to proceed with it. So I wrote down here not only one T code, but two of them, one that is ME28 that you can use to approve, or ME29. Now, ME29 is to release a single STO, while the ME28 can be used if you want to release several STOs at the same time based on purchasing group responsible. Okay, so let's take a quick look at both to see what they look like. Since we don't have to log out and log in because the user is the same, it should be quite quick. Okay, I'm going to start with the ME29N so you guys get an idea of the easier one for you right now, and then we'll check the other one. Okay, so /n, ME29N. If I click on ME29N, where do we go? We go to a page that is very similar to this one here, the one we were just using. Now, be very careful because this is what ECC does a lot of the times. You run your transaction and you think, okay, this is it. This is the one I was working on. But it's not, actually. You can see the storage location here is Bamako, even though the material may look the same. Take a look at your PO here, okay? You see that this is a completely different transaction, all right? And we have to select here the icon for other purchase order and make sure that we input the correct one, okay? And this is where we add our number. So here's where we would add the STO that we wrote down before. And we click on OK, and now that is our correct transaction. See, ZINT. So always make sure you're not working on someone else's transaction. It may be very, very probable when you guys practice your exercises that once you go and perform ME29N, you see whatever number you see, you go, you release, and you think your job is done, and you just released someone else's. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, how do we know what we're releasing? Let's go here to the release strategy. Okay, the release strategy tab that we have here, and it'll show us that the logistics supply chain coordinator responsible for releasing has to click on this button here where you see the sort of pencil and green check mark to release the transaction. Okay, right now it's blocked and we wouldn't be able to create an outbound until we have released this transaction. Okay, so it's very important that we keep that in mind. And before I release it, I'm going to go now to ME28 to see the difference there. I want you also to pay attention to the release group and release strategy. So we have information here related to the who would be in charge of releasing. In this case, we're looking at our code here, LS, and this is going to become important in a second when I go to my next T code. The fact that the code LS is linked to this release, we'll see now how that matters. Okay, we will do /n here and do ME28. And we're going to the T code now to approve more than one STO at the same time. Okay, we see the first option here at the top. It says release code. If I click on the matchbox, the release code we see here, BO, FO, G1, G4, G5, G6, GS, LS. See, that's where it becomes important here. So in this particular case, our code was LS to be able to release any STO that has been created and is linked to this particular code for the logistics supply chain coordinator that is supposed to approve this transaction. It is the only field that seems to be required here. So if I select LS and click OK, now the system is going to look, is going to filter every other STO and make sure that it's only showing us the STOs that the LS is responsible to release. Okay, we can click on execute, and there's quite a number of STOs to release in this particular case. It says, see, release possible, release possible, release possible. So we can basically just select the item that we want to release and then release it. And we can see all of them at the same time here, and we can just go selecting, release, 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 and we can release all in one shot instead of having to go individually into each STO. Okay, if we go to our exercise, we'll see that that's the case. Even though in the exercise, I think here I explained only the ME29N. We can also now look for our STO and release it. So let's make sure that we're releasing the correct STO in this case. And remember, the one we were selecting was the one ending in 159. We could simply scroll down. There are not that many here. And we see we don't have many options to filter and play around and sort in ascending order or anything like that. But we see our code here, 159. Okay, we can double click on it. It'll take us to the actual STO, or we can simply select it as we have here and then release it. And I'll check later on if that one is released. Okay, you see, we have a green light here, says released. And now this STO should be completely released. Release affected with release code LS. Okay, we can go now back to our ME22N, maybe, if we want to view the STO. I'm sorry. Oh, I can go back here. Let me just make sure I'm doing the correct steps. Let's go to ME28 in this case, okay, because that's the one we were using before. I'm sorry, ME29, 29N. And we're back in the page that we were at before. Now you see here, this is my correct one. And maybe because I didn't save it before, this hasn't been released yet. Okay, so if we do perform the transaction before, remember to save it and release it. But you can always come back to the T-code I just selected now to make sure that your action performed was done correctly. In the case that I just did before, I clicked on release, I had a green light, but since I didn't save, it probably didn't release the transaction. I'm making sure that this is my correct one, 484 ending in 159. So definitely, I'm just going to do it this time through here. And I released it, and this time I'm going to save it to make sure that that is released. Okay, we'll save. And now I know for sure, see my green check mark here under released, that this STO has been completely released. So it's up to you to use any of the two. I recommend you practice with both of them, ME29N or ME28, to release the STO, get your green check mark, and move on to the creation of your outbound document. Okay, any questions so far? If not, I'll move on to the next T-code as the, yes?
Nothing in the chat. No.
Okay, perfect. So now I'm moving on. I'm the logistics user in this case. So although I'm not switching roles, because before I was the logistics supply chain coordinator and I was creating my STO, now I'm moving on to the logistic user, but I don't need to change the user. You won't need to in your exercise either. So good news. Go back here, and now we're adding the T-code ME23N. Okay, and we're going to that one. We're back in the page, very similar to the one before. We're going to our exercise, the body, and we're going to see what else do I have to do. Again, we tell you, please make sure you add the right material document. Okay. To see, click on the purchase order icon and insert your STO number and purchase order field. And then we create our outbound delivery. If you want to see your outbound delivery document, okay, let's see. This transaction in this particular case is for you guys just to look at the details of your transaction if you want to. So we can look at confirmations. In this case, we don't have any confirmation, so we don't have anything created in terms of outbound documents. Very good. So you can skip directly when you do the exercise from this step to this step if you want to, as the step before is really just to display. And we're going to use this T-code this time, VL10B, to create our outbound delivery number. Go here, paste, and VL10B is going to now take us to the following screen. And what it's telling us to do here is adding our shipping point and our receiving point, as well as the delivery dates of the creation of this outbound document based on the STO that we have just created. If you follow the instructions on the exercise, it's quite easy. It shows us that shipping point, receiving point is the same one, because remember, we're only using the same plant. And then we tell you that in the delivery date, we say add today's date and delivery date, or leave it blank. I think it also works if we leave it blank. And then add the purchasing document number just created under the purchase order tab. So let's see how this works. I'm going to add here SS10, and I'm going to run it just the way it is, see what it gives me, okay, if it shows anything. And right away, it shows me something here, okay? It shows me my STO. You see 159. I'm going to go back really quick and show you guys something else. So I didn't even have to delete any of the dates. Actually, since I did it today, the date is fine. If you go to the PO tab here, you can actually add the document number directly in this field. If you want to, you can type it in, the 484, we have the 4 zeros, and then we would have to add our number here, 159. We can do that as well and then run it. We're basically going to end up in the same place. Okay, it's going to show us only the STOs that we have created so far. So we can select that one, and before we generate our outbound delivery document, let's see what we have here to do. See here, I tell you guys to add the purchasing document number. You don't have to, you can just execute it, but it's easier if you do, if there's a lot more of them that are going to pop up later on as a result of all of you doing the transactions at the same time. It may be easier to find. So once it's displayed, what we tell you to do is select the item and say select your STO and click on background, okay? We'll see that button in a second. When we select it and click on background, we should generate the outbound delivery document automatically. So I'm selecting it, okay, and I'm clicking on background, and let's see what it tells me here. So it tells me that C-log information about creating deliveries, okay? It seems that it went through. I'm not sure. These icons here at the top are also very helpful, and in the exercise I explained some of them. For example, if I click on this one here, we can see if maybe it generated an outbound document or not. We have it also, we can view a different display of the transaction. We can even expand and see if it has generated. I have a feeling it hasn't generated my outbound delivery document because I should have that number displayed at this point in the section here. We can also check and see what log and what information I'm getting. If I click on background, it tells me that there's C-log information. I think it's this one here. All right, so there is an information note, records passed. Okay, let me see if I have some more information that I can check, or maybe the documents. Because that yellow warning sign, I'm not liking it much. I don't know what that's going to tell me, that if I've been able to do it or not. Nonetheless, I can always go back to my ME23 code, which I'm going to do now. I can always go back to ME23N, add my STO number here, and when I run it, let me just make sure I'm adding the right one, and that's it. When I run it, I should have under my confirmations an actual outbound delivery number. And in this case, I don't see anything generating. And I'm wondering why I can't see the message either. If Lucia, in this case, if one of these yellow warning messages that I'm getting now, for example, for the creation of the outbound, and I want to get a little more information as to what's going on and why it's not creating it, because it's not blocking me, it's just telling me something is going on.
The yellow message, it's not a warning message, the red one, it's due to the date. Because you are doing everything in one date. This is the reason why you have this message. Okay, click on that one, highlight it better. I don't know if, okay, let's try in this way, because I don't know, you know, it's so small, the video. Click on background. I'm trying, I don't want to.
No problem.
No, maybe you didn't see, it's not, for me, it's not highlighted. You have to highlight it better. Click on the, should be another color, not blue. No, go back. Okay. So sorry. Yeah. Okay. Now background now. Then the two tracks. Oh, okay, it's okay. Two tracks.
Yeah. And so, here's where I should be able to see my
click
outbound.
on. You have to click on.
Yeah. But it's not
the other one. Click on the other one.
The one to the right.
Yeah. Click on. Yeah. Open. It's not created. Go in the.
See if I can do it through here. I'm selecting it here. But you see, it says C-log information about creating.
Yeah, but you have to, I'm not seeing here. There is a drill down that you can check where there is, if something is missing. Okay, oh my God. Let me see here. Where is it? No, it's, you should have the information of the log. It's not there. I'm not seeing from here because I cannot click on, honestly. The one here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth, yeah, that one. No, the other one. Two previous one.
Okay, this one here?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Nothing.
Nothing, yeah. It's just simply not generating it, but it's not telling me why exactly. So I was able to release it. There was no problem there.
Because did you check in the inventory? Because it's a yellow, should be there. There is no warning message. I cannot go inside to check, but it's strange. Okay, can you try with another T code? VL. Sure. I'm using my memory, so I'm not sure. VL 10D. Go back and use VL. Oh, see from here. Okay.
Okay.
Same story.
Same story. We execute. We have it here.
See.
And same thing.
Same story. All of the icons. 1, 2, 3. Background, the one close to background, and the.
Okay, this one. Okay.
Yeah, and the track.
2 and 3.
No, it's not generating.
Yeah. Okay, there
There
may
is a
be,
mistake.
there has to be. I'm going to go check it now. Maybe we can take the break
See,
now.
delivery quantity is 0. It means that there is something wrong in the inventory.
Okay, so I'll check that one too. I'm not being very lucky with my materials in this transaction, but let's take the break now since we already been through this for an hour, and we'll come right back and see. In the meantime, I'm just going to play around with the system a bit and see what else I can do on this transaction. Okay, so we'll be back at maybe 3:05 maybe.
Perfect, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, there it is.
Brian, they are on order, so they are not free.
Exactly, yeah.
So you have to do Migo and put something in the stock. Do a good receipt, something like that, or you can put also 201. So you can put something old in stock, and then the outbound will work.
Okay, let's see if I can actually do that in this environment. I'm not sure. Okay. So let's go with the goods receipt here. Okay. And now in this particular case, just to make sure, what reference would I be using here? Other?
Other, yes, Brian.
Yeah. Okay.
And Z01, just to kind of return stock.
101?
Oh, Z01, no?
Z01.
Z01, yes, sorry. I told you 201.
No problem. And here, let's go back and see what material it is that I'm actually working with right now. This one here. Honestly, well, I'm already at it. Might as well.
Yeah, Andre. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm already there. Might as well. Okay, SS10, and the location was 5104, I think, just to make sure. It's the one I'm taking things from. So yes, 5104. Let's see. All right. What else am I missing here? I know it. Okay.
Yeah, don't worry. Put the posting date. Put the posting date. I don't know if you have the posting date. Let's see. Okay, put posting. It's today. Why is saying you that the fiscal period is expired?
The thing, I think it has something to do with the. We had this issue before when we were posting. The posting period was expired and was blocked, and we thought that it was already solved.
Brian, sorry, going to the Where tab. Yeah, you have to change the moving tab even here because it's not matching Z01.
Okay, let's see.
It's not automatically changed. So now you have to put them in call center.
We have to put everything manually here.
Yeah, in account, the fund and fund center.
Okay, which one is it for this one?
Check in the STO. In the STO, you have in the STO in the accounting tab.
Let's make this smaller. And we got it there.
Go down.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there we go. All right, perfect. What is this? Let me get rid of this one. Okay.
Sorry, Brian, just to recap.
Yes.
You did the STO, then the outbound delivery, for some reason, is not generating, so you are doing goods receipt, right?
Yeah, we're just doing a quick goods receipt of 100 items to add them to the inventory in that storage location.
Okay. So previous of releasing the STO.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
But there was a mistake, Elena, because we changed the PID. So of course, changing the PID, you didn't know before, no, that the PID didn't work. So we changed everything. Of course, the item were not in stock. So the system is giving you a mistake, but only because we changed the PID.
But I think, yeah, the PIDs, yes, we were speaking about this before. The PIDs, as long as, even if it's outdated, as long as there is any unit in the inventory, they are keeping this is what I understand. They are keeping the PID, just they are putting a symbol at the beginning of the PID. So these product IDs are to be used for this type of transactions, but not for purchasing new of the same.
Yeah, exactly. Because
even if it's let's say too generic or incorrect PID for some reason, it should allow us to use it in order to transfer the materials all the way until the material.
This is a way to prevent to send to the other mission or to another, in this case, another storage location, a wrong PID. This is the reason why there is this warning. Because as PIRO project, we have to change all the temporary, all the whatever PID that is not working, is no longer working or not longer linked to the material data. So it's to have in the new inventory something that it's correct. This is the reason why. So before doing any transaction, if the PID is not correct, you have to proceed to change it. And this is a good, because we are not doing a mistake in this way. So in the previous case, when we started to do the STO, the PID that were used, I'm repeating, it was an old one. So before doing any transaction, we are putting the case that is the reality. We have to change the PID, put the correct one, and then proceed with the STO. Of course, this is an environment training, so it's obvious. Can happen. It's normal.
And yeah, and I think even no matter what we're trying to do at this point, adding the fund, cost center, I'm still checking and it still gets the error message here. April 2020 is not opened for the account.
For this GL account,
GL, yeah.
We have a big problem.
Yeah, so we're not going to be able to receive or create the outbound for this one.
Let's try to change, but I'm guessing this to facilitate this operation. Let's try to change, since you have 1 month to do the posting, let's try to do in March.
Okay.
I'm trying, I'm guessing it's a way, it's a workaround. I don't know. Maybe, okay, bye, posting. Okay, good.
All right, that's just okay. That's great. I hope that doesn't happen in reality.
Yes, okay. Even in the reality. Okay. Good.
All right. So that means that at this point here, nice little stress during the training to see if this comes through, and we should have now our materials here. Let's see. Okay, so that went through. All right. That's thank you guys for the quick jump in support. I can tell you guys do this very often. So not exactly this transaction, but playing around with the quick addition. Let's see now what it looks like. I don't think it's gonna let me do this as of yet, but
yeah, don't forget to complete the warehouse.
Exactly. I should do the put away as well, right? Maybe we're gonna skip that right now.
Yeah, I think so. It should work.
Yeah,
That
I
bounce
think
should
we
work.
should be fine.
I know.
Yeah, I know. We're just joking around. I'm here. I'm teaching all the proper ways, right? And I just did a bunch of things you should never do. Okay, great. So, and I'll edit that out of the recording after the session's over. Okay, so let's see. Where were we? I did so many transactions now. Just make sure that we have here stock overview. Let's get that one out of the way. And we were looking at the generation, right? VL10B, not D, but B. And let's see, SS10, we can write the purchase order or not. And now it should be, it still shows a yellow light, but maybe at this time around we can. It's already better. There you go. All right. And now we can see it. Okay. Well, guys, remind me to buy you a couple of drinks next time we meet. Okay. Or coffee, whatever it is you prefer. For that quick
drink.
Drink is better. Drink different. Better. No
okay.
coffee.
No coffee. Okay. No problem. All right. So by now we should all be back. So it's been a fun break. Thanks, Pietro and Lucia, for that quick support. So what we've been doing in the meantime, if you guys left or if you guys stayed, we were just adding quickly. We won't tell you what we did, so you don't repeat that when you're in production. But we just added 100 pieces of this material to the inventory because by switching to a material from one to another, and I guess from one day to the next, material disappeared from the storage location. We had a bunch of items there before. We tested it. It worked. Then suddenly today it doesn't. But luckily, we have experts in the room too that can help us jump in and fix it quickly. We added 100 pieces of this material. We went back to the T-code here to generate our outbound, clicked on background, and now we have our outbound document number generated. Okay, and that's what we were missing before. When this works properly and you click on background, you have two lines, right? One that tells you where your outbound is and the other one that relates to your STO. And if you click on the icons we were showing you before, show hide delivery or the structure here, you'll have more information as to what we have just performed and done. Okay, so we have it here in sort of a branching out sort of view. We have our outbound here. And if we go back to our truck, actually, we have to click on this again to go back to our truck view. We have our outbound document here directly. And we can access it by double clicking on it. And it'll take us directly to our outbound delivery document, which is right here. Very similar to the inbound delivery document that we were looking at on day 2. Okay, and sorry for all that earlier, all of you that are paying attention, but it was just something we had to do. So in this case, we can now display and update our outbound delivery number by either going to the T-code VL02, or I think basically right where we are, if we click on the glasses, we will be able to make changes to the, yes, I see some fields have already become available. So now we can make changes to the outbound delivery. So again, either we use this T-code or we simply double click on the outbound number that showed up and we click on the pencil and glasses, and we are now able to start adding more information to the outbound. So remember, just like we did for the inbound on day 2, when we were receiving goods, we also had to add quick essential information to the outbound delivery. For example, the bill of lading document. So in this particular case, we're going to also either be dealing with a freight forwarder that's going to transport our goods, or either if it's an internal UN transport, we're going to have a document that proves the goods that we're transporting, how they have to be packed. And usually for STOs, it is true that the packing is done regularly. So this is a step that has always been done. And now with TM, again, it becomes required to pack. So basically, just like we did for the inbound, we would now select our item, click on the pack icon, and be able to select a packaging material for this specific material here too. Okay, we can either click on the box. It's probably going to tell me that it's not maintained. There you go. All right, but I'm going to add the packaging materials here manually. Okay, so I'm selecting the item that I want to pack. I'm clicking on either the packing button, which in production should work because the material should be there. But if in any case in the training environment, you simply go to the field packaging materials, click on the matchbox, and we can select any of the few that we have here, very few. So we either have the box or the wrap stretch film or any other. So in this particular case, I'm going to stick to the ZPAM type. I'm going to click on OK. And once I click on Enter, my handling unit is generated. Remember that from day 2, handling unit is crucial in TM. So this is where TM integrates also with the STOs. We double click on the handling unit, and that takes us to the screen where we have to define the weight, volume, and dimensions. Okay, and here is we would have to add basically the weight, volume, and dimensions of the goods that we're transporting. Now again, if you're going to be responsible for this type of information, I doubt it, but this is something that is regularly done during intramission and intermission scenarios, so it shouldn't be something new. I know it was mostly for those that are incoming from a vendor purchased goods, but in this particular case, not. This is very typical. So I'm just really adding numbers here for the sake of just completing the weight, volume, and dimensions of this particular material that we're transporting so that we perform all the necessary steps to make sure that the outbound document is correctly packed. We can again navigate through here, or as I said before, we can use the T code that we have in the body, which is the one VL02N, and simply type it here. And there it's going to ask me to add my outbound if I know it or it shows directly because it's the last one I've been using. I just enter, and I would have to now also update the information like I did with the inbound. Go to the header, go to the shipment tab, and then here I would basically see here we do have the DAP Incoterm because we added it in the STO. We can add the bill of lading information. I'm just going to add anything here, and if in this case we are selecting a freight forwarder, I'm also going to add the information related to the means of transportation by freight forwarder. That's, I think, I'm not sure how many times during intra-mission scenarios we're going to be using freight forwarders. Maybe that's the common process. Depends on the mission, depends on the security conditions in the mission too. Maybe we're only using our own vehicles, or maybe we're using freight forwarders. In this particular case, I'm setting it up as if we were going to be using a freight forwarder to transport our goods in this particular case. Once we do that, we should have all the information set. Okay, we're doing our packing, and basically that would be the last thing we do for the outbound. Okay, then from there, what we do is create transfer order for picking, process the transfer order for picking, then do the transfer order for put away, process the transfer order for put away. So I think from then on, we understand the process. I can even go to the cover page and show you guys what we have done. Okay, we have reviewed our stock transport order. We've created our outbound. We displayed it. We performed the packing. And at this point, what we would be doing is adding the transfer order for picking from the source warehouse. And then we would be receiving it. And then a very important step here, and I'm adding it too. And there's also, I think, details on that as we go down. If it's not explained step by step, we're at least mentioning what you should be looking at or performing in terms of the equipment update, okay, and the exercise. So take a look at this section here, IE02 for the SD11 equipment master data, because we're going to have to update the equipment records in the source location too, right? Because remember, every time we're doing something to a piece of equipment, whether it's being received and we're enriching it and we're adding it to our inventory, or it's being moved around or issued out, like we learned with Elena and we learned yesterday with the return to stock in addition to stock, you have to make those changes to the equipment as well. I also doubt you guys will be the ones responsible to do so, but just in case, you also have to know what steps are important for each transaction. Now, since we have performed these transactions before, and if it's okay with you guys, maybe we can now jump into the intermission transfer, okay, as our last step here. Okay, I am back to my outbound, and the last thing I would need to do for this outbound to be processed, and we'll go back up for a little bit here in the body before I jump into my next exercise, okay, is that here, okay, transfer order for picking, not yet. So we've performed the packing. We can save our outbound, and basically once we have done that, we would go for the transfer order for picking. So any question there, or is it okay if we jump into the intermission? Maybe we want to review some steps here. I know that there was a bit of confusion with the lack of materials in the storage location. Sorry about that. I wasn't counting on it. Is there anything in the chat?
Yes, Brian, you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Nicola now, he just posted that to answer the frequency of these transactions for intra-mission transfer, it might happen at stage when the materials of the equipment are transferred from regions to mission headquarters, maybe upon region site closure, possibility of view centralized write-off and disposal. So yes, linked to what Pietro said before on Minujust, with 55 STOs created so far. So it's something that happens, and especially in a liquidation phase as well. But besides that, we thank you, the rest of the colleagues, for giving explanations on the PID. Thank you, Claudio, for that. And for the rest, there are no more comments or questions related to the intra-mission transfer. And I don't know if it's okay if we can move on to the next exercise. Because that's the idea, right? To move on to the next.
That's the idea. So basically, as long as it's clear, we understand that some of the steps are performed differently. I think the main point of this exercise was to show you guys the creation of an STO for the type of STO ZINT. Okay, sorry with the issues that we had in between. Hopefully we don't have those in the next one, and if we do, we'll manage to fix it too. Okay, but pay attention to the next following transactions, okay, because we're not done yet, right? This transaction continues. We would do the TO for picking and confirm it, and then we would do the posting of the goods issue, okay, at the end, and we would do it through the outbound delivery document. You see, we would go back to our outbound delivery document and post the goods issue, just like we did it for the virtual goods receipt, where we were posting the goods issue through the actual inbound delivery document. Okay, as we were seeing it. All right, so I'm just going to save this for now and make sure that we're okay with this one. And maybe I can jump in on it later on. And if you guys practice and have any issues, let us know. So I'm just going to close this particular transaction and even log off for a second. I'll close these two. And maybe we can jump into the intermission transfers. Okay, this one now, again, this is a whole world on its own. Explaining this in 40 minutes is really not the best either, but at least I want to make sure that we understand it. If we can get to understand it, even if we don't get to perform the demo, that's an idea already in itself. Just take a look at the cover page for intermission transfers and look at the amount of transactions and steps that we would have to be performing in order to get through the entire transactions. You see if I can display it all at once on screen. Basically, the amount of roles that are involved in this, the amount of T-codes that are involved in this in transactions. According to what I know, you guys would come into play probably basically at the create outbound delivery stage. Okay, so you would not have to worry about every other step before that. Unless, of course, you're granted the role to create the stock transport order. But in this case, it's GSCC, so I doubt it. Okay, I think honestly for this particular case, you would just dive into the maybe either the create outbound or maybe start the transfer order for picking at some point. Okay, I'm not sure. Nonetheless, I wrote down all the steps and roles that are involved in this one. Now let's understand what intermission is before we even get started with this. So we've been talking about transferring goods from storage location to storage location. doing the same, but now a bit further in distance. So we had to do a MIGO transaction to say that something was in transit. Now, the one that we just did now, the intramission type ZINT, is the one that requires transport because the locations are so far apart, but they're still the same mission, that we need to track transportation. The example we used was Darfur, Niala transferring goods from their storage location to the main headquarters in Al Fasher. But now when we talk about intermission transfer, what we're talking about is from one mission to another one completely different. Okay, that has nothing to do with it. So we're transporting goods from one place to another that are not linked to each other at all, right? It's like we were transporting goods from Brindisi to MONUSCO, or maybe from MINUSCA to Mogadishu, or just from one mission to another, for you guys to understand this. To be able to do this, there's usually a request for goods to be transferred. This is usually performed when a mission is requesting goods to be transferred to their storage location. They don't have it in their storage location. They're requesting another mission instead of purchasing it. There are also many scenarios, and I'm adding the scenarios here if I'm not mistaken. And I'm also going to go back to maybe the presentation, because I think it's clear here. If we can see it in this presentation, I think I have a good scenario, maybe if not here, in the next one of the intermission. But we're basically looking at stock transfers between different missions and plants, and we're talking about budget relevant transfers, non-budget relevant transfers, or the strategic deployment of stock, or even from the UN reserve. Okay, so there's a lot of different scenarios that come into play with this one, and I know this is a behemoth in itself, and maybe deserves a training in itself just to be able to perform every single one of these transactions. The one we're sticking to in this training is basically we're trying to do one for that is non-budget relevant, and I think in the cover page we describe it here. Okay, learn to transfer stock between different plants. In this exercise, we're going to perform a non-budget relevant stock transfer of 3 different materials between 2 different plants, focusing on the steps performed by the local supply chain coordinator in this case, and probably if we get and have enough time with the global supply chain coordinator. Okay, I believe this is a complex exercise. If you guys want to take a stab at it and try it, you're welcome. You have the information you need. It's quite long. And Lucia, if I'm missing something in terms of explanation, now I think would be a good time to jump in. If we want to maybe clarify some things I said. Also during liquidation, I don't know how many times you're going to be requesting goods during liquidation, but transferring them, yes. So maybe we're just creating STOs directly without the STRs. That's also something that we could discuss.
No, the STR is necessary. The STR is done by the global supply chain. We are talking about the intermission transfer between the liquidation mission to another mission. In any case, the local supply chain, the requiring mission has to perform the STR, and then Brindisi, the global supply chain coordinator, has to raise the STO. So the STR is necessary.
Okay, so to get an idea visually of this sort of situation, right, during liquidation. So the case raising an STO, this is because we're doing exactly what with those, let's say a vehicle, right? We're returning it. Is that the case? If we're talking about strategic deployment, or we're talking about maybe overage of the materials that we have. I just want to understand very well the types of scenarios we can encounter.
Okay.
Brian,
yes.
These are assets from what we call Group 1 that we're shipping to other missions. Brindisi is involved in all of those types of transactions. And another transaction from mission to mission will be to Brindisi itself for vehicles to be refurbished, for an example.
Yeah, Joel, correct, but it's always an intermission transfer. It's from UNAMID to UNGSC, so at that stage, in any case, UNGSC has to raise the STR. It's always considered as an intermission transfer. It's correct, but it's always an intermission transfer. And this is the scenario that we always find when there is a liquidation mission. For STS is when a mission needs something from STS stock, but since we are talking about liquidation, they are going to downsizing or closing. So in general, they don't ask for something from STS. So I think that the majority of the exercise is, the first exercise is this intermission transfer between the two missions. So as Joe said, the group one that we have to transfer from UNAMID in our case to the other mission. It was this one the question?
Yes, actually, that's the idea. Yeah, exactly, right? So the STS, we're not going to worry about that. So in a sense, what we're doing is we're returning the items to another mission. If let's say, because a lot of the things we're going to be doing are write-off, right? Write-off is going to play a key part. But then if I'm just trying to see where the intermission fits in this particular case, right? What situations will spur that will have us send our equipment to another mission, even during liquidation?
Yeah, clear. When the items, as already Joe underlined, when the items, the equipment are declared as group one, this means that they can be used to from another mission. So at that stage, there is evaluation. So these items that are in good condition can be transferred from the liquidation mission to another one to be used again in that mission. So every item that is under group one, generally speaking, they are condemned for the intermission transfer. For the write-off and for the rest is another part, is another story, but they are under different group. So we are talking about group one to be transferred to another mission that can be used in a new mission. We are finding a new house for these items. Joe, you know better than me, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, that's correct. Brian, don't go into too many details of this today, but Group 1 assets is assets identified that are suitable for transfer to other mission or transfer to GSC. That's it, just plain and simple. Maybe a mission is looking for an armored car, maybe looking for an ambulance, a fire truck, very high value items. We ship around when we're from liquidation missions to missions that may require this equipment.
Okay, I see. No, I just wanted to make sure when we're talking about what we're doing, right, to have an understanding of what's the typical scenario. Of course, we're talking about several of them in this exercise, but we're basically, of course, not thinking of the ZSDS when we're performing these transactions. But I think Lucia explained it very well in the sense of saying, listen, if we are handing over or sending these materials to another mission so that they can make use of it, those are transactions we're also going to be performing. So this intermission scenario is going to be just as important as in any intramission scenario, even in addition to stock or any other transaction that we have performed so far, and will be quite common as well.
Yeah, that's correct, especially for liquidating missions.
Okay, perfect. So now that we have, I just wanted to make sure we clarified that and talk about that. So let's move on and start creating our transactions. Okay, first thing, we'll create the STR in this case. So I'm going to log in once again to the system unless I have it here. Okay, T5E. And we should be using the same user as before. Here you go. Okay, and let's follow our exercise here and see exactly the steps we have to follow. So again, we have the transactions to log in. There's also an explanation, okay, of any other step that is not performed right now. For example, if we needed to create a funds commitment because we're transferring an asset, there's an explanation on that too. Now we're not adding it to this exercise because if we had to do all these steps, we would never finish this exercise too. That's why in the summary you have the steps there, but we're not performing all of these now, basically because we're not going to deal with a fixed asset. What we're going to do is we're going to jump in directly to the creation of the STR for this exercise. Okay, we're going to be using the T-code ME51N, and we're going to be creating this stock transport request. Okay, and there's also an explanation in the exercise of why we would be generating one of these, but I think Lucia has already explained it well enough, so we can just jump into it directly. Okay,
just,
so
if I
yes,
I don't want to interrupt you, so sorry.
Anytime.
You are jumping, you are excluding this part of the funds commitment, but this is correct because the funds commitment is only related to the budget relevant operation, just to be clear. So it's not necessary at this stage since we are checking the liquidation part. This means that when we have to transfer the item from one mission to another one, they are not budget relevant. So there is no need to create any funds commitment. So it's not necessary.
Even when dealing with a fixed asset?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Right,
wrongly in the beginning, they started to ask to create this funds commitment, but at the end, this didn't work. So we excluded this part. So we are doing this STR-STO process without creating any funds commitment because there is no budget implication. So we don't need to put this put the details in this field.
Okay, very good. Thanks again, Lucia.
It's okay just to, so it's not necessary, just to put something more. Okay.
Absolutely. No, and again, I want to keep focusing on scenarios we're going to encounter, right? And transactions we're going to be performing when deployed. So that really fits in exactly what we're thinking of doing when we're deployed, right? Transferring, but non-budget relevant. Okay, so when I do add my T code, I just selected T code ME51N, which is the one to create the STR. Okay, in this particular case, we're going down to the transaction here. We added ME51N, and we also have, it looks a lot like the transaction we were doing before, but now we also have to make some sort of selections and some sort of fields that are key, not only for the STR, but also for TM, and have a direct integration with TM. Okay, the first thing we have to do is select the proper option from the drop-down menu, just like we did with STOs. In this case, what we're looking at here, we have less options because this is a different T code. So right now what we're doing is we're creating a ZSTR stock transport request, and that's the one we should be selecting first. We see that all our items here are collapsed, so maybe I can start expanding them so we have a better view of what we're doing. So we have the correct selection here, ZSTR. Be careful with that. Make sure you select the right one because it's very easy when you first start, and I'm going to do this one again. Here, when we first go into the T code, ME51N, and I'm saying this because this is a common, I've seen this happen before. The first option is NB purchase requisition. That is not the one we're selecting, okay? Make the change and select the ZSTR because this is the stock transport request option. So here we go. Let's start with what we're doing here. So we're requesting for specific goods to be moved, correct? And also Lucia was also explaining to us that the stock transport request is, in a sense, it's performed by GSC at all times, and no matter what the situation is, correct, right?
Brian, the STR is performed, is done by the requiring mission.
Okay.
So the new house, for example, if we have to transfer an item from UNAMID to AMIS, the STR is performed by AMIS. Then, after the STR, UNGSC raised the STO. We will see now together.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's the case. That's why I was just repeating it because I had understood that when you were speaking before, and I knew it was wrong, and I'm mentioning it again, right? So this particular situation, since we're not involving GSC because we're not requesting any items from, let's say, the strategic deployment stock, we're just transferring our goods to another mission. The one that would be requesting is the requesting mission, the one that's going to receive them, right? That's what we would be doing, would be requesting this between two different missions.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So this is the reason why this is the request from the mission that they need that type.
Exactly.
So the STR is always done. Then after the completion of this STR, there is the STO. The STO is the document that authorizes the intermission transfer and is done in UNGSC.
Okay, so at what point in this creation of the STR-STO, the mission that is actually supplying those goods, do they intervene at any point? Because if the requesting mission is the one doing the STR, GSC is the one processing the STO.
You're talking
the mission
about...
that is...
No, sorry, continue, please.
No, the mission that is supplying the goods, right? Do they have any sort of implication in this process? In the process of STR-STO, I mean.
Yes, when we raise the STO, there is the approval from the local supply chain coordinator of the supplying mission. We will see in the STO, there is this approval before the approval of the global supply chain coordinator. This means that they are confirming that they have those items in stock, so they can deliver to the new mission. In this case, we are saying, for example, I'm taking one mission, for example. We will see step by step. So the first approval is from in the STO, not in the STR, because the STR is the request. In the STO, the first approval is from the supplying mission. The second approval is from UNGSC that is authorizing, based on cost-benefit analysis, the intermission transfer itself. But we can see together during the steps that it's really clear. It's nothing, it's just an approval.
Well, okay, we're definitely going to see it now step by step as we go through, but it's a good way for me to not only explain it, understand it, and for the rest of the students to see, you know, how many people are involved in this specific process and at what point they come in. Right, so let's start maybe by adding our materials, and let's see in this particular case, I may face the same issues as before, hopefully not, but it could be. Let's see, I'm going to select this material here and add it to the line, and let's see if we have, okay, right now I don't have the error message that it doesn't exist, but the entering of the plant. So the requesting mission is generating the STR in this case and is adding the information of the materials that they are requesting. Okay, for this specific case, we're adding a piece of material that, of course, we probably wouldn't raise the STR just for something like this. We would add more materials. This would be a lot more complex in terms of the materials that we're adding, but for the specific case here, we're just going to work with this material, and we're going to start adding the rest of the information that we have here. Okay, so to follow the steps, we have everything identified here to enter the item category U, quantity just one, the delivery date, plant, and so on. But let's see, and let's pay attention to what we're adding at each point. So again, we're talking about only the plant SD10, so we're switching plants from the one we had before. In this case, we're doing SD10 instead of SS. And in this case, we're talking about Unimid, right? Actually, this would be a very good example. So we have the mission Unimid here. We're transferring a filter oil. Okay, so maybe we wouldn't be doing this, but still bear with us. We have the item category that we have to add is item category U. And if you want to understand what that is for stock transfer. Just have to make sure that it's added there. Everything is explained here. Let's add our quantity, our date, and the storage locations. Okay, the storage locations are the ones that are requesting the goods. So we're adding the storage location of the receiving plant, and then we're going to worry about our purchasing group here. Okay, so let's add our storage location. Again, remember, this would be the one linked to Unimid. In this case, it's 1102. We add it here. Let's click on enter and see what else the system is telling us to add. Okay, our quantity. Let's just go with one. And it's still telling me to add a purchasing group. Okay, and let's see, and let's focus on this and understand what this is. Okay, let's click on the matchbox here and see what we are selecting or what type of purchasing groups we have available here. We see quite a different set of numbers available here, which I think it's because of the training environment per se. And then again, here, I'll go back to Lucia here too. The purchasing group that we're selecting is TG1, okay, which identifies the relevant global supply chain coordinator based on the commodity that we're requesting. If I'm not mistaken here, these purchasing groups, TG1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6, are all linked to GSC, correct?
Absolutely correct.
Okay. Very good. So we're adding it here, our purchasing group, and we click enter, see what else is necessary here. It tells us to add the supplying plant, but again, at this point, we don't even have to know who's supplying us with the goods. We're only requesting the goods, so we don't have to put this information here. And basically, that's why it's only a warning message. So we can move forward and just click on enter again. It'll tell us that the delivery date again to be met is today. Again, if this were a real case scenario, we may put 2 weeks from now. I don't know usually what are the date ranges that we add during the transfers, but I'm sure it's at least maybe 15 days. There's a minimum amount of days for this type of requirement to occur. And let's click on enter here again, and we should be done with what we need to add to this STR. Let's see, let's check our exercise and make sure that we're not skipping anything. Okay, well, let's check the tabs too at the bottom, especially the evaluation. And then basically we'll just save and create our STR. Okay, so as we were looking at before, and Lucia was guiding us through it, once we've added the information, we can take a look at the tabs that we have below. We even have a valuation price, which is really the price linked to the, is this price linked in any sense to the moving average price, the one that we have here? Okay. So it's pretty much what it's going to cost us to start moving things around. Although in this case, this one is non-budget relevant, but the system is still indicating, right, the price that this would cost. All right, very good. So we move on. We see that everything else is practically there described. Very good. Delivery address. So we can go through. We know it's fine, and we can save, and we would be done basically with our stock transport request. So what has been really key and important to add here is our plant, of course, the material and so on, but the plant, the storage location requesting it, and the purchasing group that this request is going to go to in Brindisi so that you can evaluate the request and suggest the best issuing location for the goods that we're requesting. Okay, and all the processes of approval and release are also going to go through the purchasing group that we've added here. Okay, so let me save this and make sure we have note of the number that we're selecting here. Okay, so we have this number at the bottom all the way to the left and 40313, okay? And we have created our STR. So let's go back. And again, sorry, I'm going slowly with this one because there's so much that you can mess up with, and there's so many other transactions in between that we need to be very careful. So at this point, see, we already started skipping some steps. We went directly for the create stock transport request, but in this specific situation, we didn't look at the stock availability. We didn't create the funds commitment, as Lucia was explaining. It was required before, and now it's not for non-budget relevant transactions like this one. Okay, so we did the ME51, and at this point here we have several users involved. Okay, and here's where I think we need to pause a little bit before we go on. We have the approval of the stock transport request. We have the review of the STR and funds commitment if it applies, right, in this case, and then the review estimate and update of the funds commitment. So as there is no funds commitment, we could completely skip these two steps here, but we still need to have the approval, correct, of the stock transport request. So in this case, we're going to have to use the T code ME54N and log in as the FM budget officer and approve this request, that it would be the case, correct?
Correct.
All right, very good. So we're not going to go into our inbox, but we're going to use our T code ME54N to do so. Okay. So I just added ME54N, and now there is a way to look for the STR that was already created and let's say approve it, correct? So we have the other purchase requisitions box that we see here, just like we've been using up to now. And in this case, instead of selecting the purchase order, we're doing the purchase requisition. And I don't think, if I add the space bar here, I don't think that is the last one, but it's close enough. So maybe we can just change the last number, click on other document, and see if this is related to the one I just created. So it is, okay. And we have our information displayed. We'll see if I can process this or not. Okay, so you saw what I did. I'm going to click on it again. The document as we see it now is not editable. Okay, everything is grayed out. And to make sure that we can make the changes, we have to click on the display change icon we have here. You see here under the release strategy tab, we have the option as the certifying officer to release, approve this stock transport request. Again, I'm doing this quickly. In real life, there would be a long list of items. We'd have to check properly each one of them, line by line, in detail, the account assignment, the quantities, the valuation. So everything that is important to us as the certifying officers to be able to say, yes, go on with this case. And if this happens to you during the transaction, make sure that it's editable. And now once you have your pencil and check mark, you just release it. Before I do it, we go to our exercise here, and let's make sure that we are still following the same steps. Okay, so we see as the FM budget officer that we could either use our inbox to approve this transaction, which is probably the way forward, or the T code ME54 using the STR number and basically just releasing. And once we release, we can save and move on to our next step in the process. Okay, so I'm going to release this one here, and I'm going to save it too. Okay, so now the STR was created, and now it was reviewed and approved. The only reason why I have been able to access this STR is because of the purchasing group that was added at the beginning, right? The TG1. And also that purchasing group also has an impact in TM, and if by any chance this were a scenario, an SDS scenario, automatically it would link that purchasing group to a planner group in Brindisi who would be able to plan transportation. So again, it's not only impacting the STR and the STO, but it's also impacting TM, and you have to keep that in mind. Okay, purchasing group is a key field in the STR STO creation. Okay, move on to our next step. We still have 10 minutes before our New York friends join us. So we review the STR, review the estimates, and then move on to our next step. If we look at the cover page, again, these are the 2 steps that we've performed so far. I'm highlighting them in yellow, and we see all the other steps that we can skip in this case, and we go to the stock transport order creation and then the release of the stock transport order. So what we are about to do now is very similar to what we did in the previous transaction, but now we can do this in a different way. For example, I'm going to go in now and follow the transaction in the body so I don't skip any steps here. And we see here, we can either review the estimates or directly create our stock transport order. So we're going to do that, and we're going to use ME21N again, just like we did in the previous transaction, but we're going to do something slightly different. Let's click here, ME21N. And now instead of selecting, okay, a type of STO directly from here and adding all the elements of the information that we don't have present right now, there's a way that we can grab the information from the STR, just like we do from a reservation in Migo, and have everything present in our transaction here when we're performing it. To do so, there is a button here called Document Overview On. It's also explained in the exercise that once we click on it, opens a small section here to the left that allows us to search for that STR. Okay, you see purchase orders, contracts, and so on. We have my purchase requisitions here. We can select that, and it'll tell us, it'll show us here at the bottom all the purchase requisitions that are still pending. Okay, if we actually unfold this, we see that we have 1 line item. So again, just a quick reminder, when I first went into ME21N, I clicked on the document overview, which was here on first, and I clicked on it to turn it on. So now if I click on it again, what I'm doing is I'm turning it off. Then I selected this icon here called Selection Variant. And when I did, I made sure I selected the proper option, which is I want to see my purchase requisitions. And here we it, the purchase requisition 313. If I select it, I can double click on it, or I can click on Adopt in this case. And what it's going to do is now here to the right, it's going to display the information from that STR, okay, that we have selected there directly. Okay, I don't think it selected it automatically. Let's see. All right, and let me go back to my exercise to see if that's clearly explained there too before I share it with you guys. Okay, and now once we have adopted the transaction, we should be able to select the appropriate STO option from the drop-down menu. Okay, so let's see if that is the case. Okay, so purchase for acquisition and B, so maybe it hasn't adopted. Let me just run this one more time. That's okay. I'm using the right transaction here. Create purchase order. Yes. All right. Just making sure. And I'm making sure that I'm selecting my purchase requisition. And adopting it. Okay, let's remain here. And here you go. Okay, this is what I want to see. So I might have made a mistake before. Okay, so once I selected the option and I adopted it here, I think it's because I double clicked on the number and not click on the adopt directly. Okay, remember now is when we have to worry about the correct selection of the STO. We have to make sure that we select the right one. It's not the ZINT that we selected before. And if we scroll up, we're going to see different options. We have the SDS. It's not the case for this one either. And as we keep scrolling up, we're going to have the non-budget STO. This is the one I want to select because that's the one pertaining to this transaction. And if we keep going up, we'll have the budget relevant STO here. So that's why it was important for you guys to perform that little selection that I did at the beginning when I logged in. So we have displayed to the left all these little, let's say, acronyms, because maybe if we only see budget relevant STO is not enough, maybe it helps us more to understand its ZBU. But let's go with the one for non-budget relevant. Okay, and now that we have selected that, maybe I can get rid of this page here, make sure that we're working now on the non-budget relevant STO. And at this point, what we would be doing is the same steps we did in our transaction before, but now we have to change the information that maybe is already defaulted and add the information that is missing. Because right now, all we have is the information added from the requesting plant. Okay, so we have our, now that we have selected it, we're going to select now the correct supplying plant, which is in our case still SD10. So the supplying plant is SD10 here. We'll move on to,
Brian.
yes.
Cannot be, because you are using issuing plant and supplying plant, same plant, cannot be. Should be two different plant.
Oh, yes. I know I wrote the wrong one. Yeah, in the body, but very good. See, I just copied it from the body, but it should be CD10, not SD10. There you go. All right. That'll make a world of a difference. That's, I was thinking that it was the same one, but I wasn't sure. And thank you for that. Okay, CD10, very good. So in the cover page, it's fine, but not in the body. So let's just change that quickly here from SD10 to CD10. And that makes a little more sense now. Okay, exactly. Because if it was SD10, we'd be talking about an intramission scenario again. Okay, so our Incoterms in this particular case, and let me go and cross-reference with my cover page here, we're still using a DAP Incoterm. Now, even though, Lucia, the Incoterms are not commercial terms in this case, and I heard that basically for the types of intermission transfers, we're mainly using either DAP or XWorks. FCA is not used. Now, so that we understand what this means when we're creating stock transport requests and stock transport orders, it's only affecting TM. What this means is that either the requesting mission or the supplying mission are the ones responsible to plan transportation and monitor transportation. That's the only thing that means. Okay, the DAP Incoterm, for example, would mean that the requesting mission is the one that is in charge of everything, versus if it was Ex Works, it would be the supplying plant, versus if it's FCA, there's a sort of a shared responsibility. Okay, so the only reason why I'm adding the Incoterm in this case is because it has a direct impact in TM as to who is responsible for transportation. Okay, so I'm adding in these particular fields DAP and also Bukavu as the destination, the final destination. All right, it doesn't mean that there's a vendor delivering the goods at place. Okay, it just means that now the receiving or the issuing mission is going to be responsible to plan transportation. Okay, so I click on enter there, and what we're missing now is our issuing storage location. Okay, so I can check here that our issuing storage location is 1102, same as the one that is supplying, but that's just coincidence. And I'm going to make sure also in the exercise if everything is okay, it's 1102 as well. Okay. But now this is the issuing storage location that is not linked to the plant that was requesting Darfur, but the one that is the one that's issuing or supplying, CD10 MONUSCO. Okay, the system tells me that everything seems okay, and the only thing I should worry about now is the delivery date. But that's not exactly the case, correct, Lucia? Because at this point now, we should be changing the purchasing group. Now that we're creating the STO, now there's no TG1 purchasing group. We should now maybe change that purchasing group to the issuing plant so that the approval can take place. And that should be done in the org data, and switch this purchasing group for the one linked to MONUSCO.
Sí, correct. Are you asking me? Correct.
Yeah, I was just, you're there. So
I
might as well have be 200%
didn't want to interrupt you. Yeah, okay. Correct, absolutely.
All right, very good. Okay, so we're adding this one here, changing it for the new purchasing group. And now you see here, I think this purchasing group is the one for Unimid, even though we're changing it to Congo, so I would have to change that one as well. Okay, so we have this one here. I'm going to just leave it there for now because anyway, we only have a minute to go and so on, and it's the last step of the transaction. We're adding the purchasing group of the mission who is supposed to approve this STO, and it's going to have to be visible in the system for them. So if we don't make that change from the TG1 to the new purchasing group, which in this case I was adding is T92, we won't be able to release it like we did before with the STR. Okay, so we'll go back to our exercise here. We make sure we make the final changes, and then once we save, we'll have generated our STO, and that should be our last step of the way. There's nothing left to do here, and once we save, we will have now our STO created, and basically from there, the steps are exactly the same as we've been performing for the INTRA. We would have to now generate the outbound document, post the outbound document, do the picking, and do the put away, just like we have been doing in the past few days. Now, I know this was a lot, and imagine we didn't even do 3/4 of the entire transaction. We were only worrying about the creation. And at this point, we'd have to now release this STO. This would be our next step before we move forward. And maybe we can do that quickly because I don't think our colleagues from HQ have joined us as of yet. Okay, I'm just making sure. Yes, is that you, Daniel, or someone else?
No, not really, but I was checking if they were online.
Okay, and not there yet, I suppose.
I'm here.
Oh, Gideon, okay.
Colleagues, but feel free to whenever the best time is.
No, right now is a good time. Okay. See, you actually, since I'm not going to do this quickly and badly, I think it's a good time to stop. I think we were able to cover at least as much as I wanted to. I squeezed 4 exercises of transfers in 4 days. Apologies if it's too much for those of you who are all new to this. A lot of transactions, a lot of business transactions and business considerations to keep in mind. But I wanted to make sure we at least went through the main aspects of these transactions, okay? So hopefully you're all okay. We're still here to support. I'm going to review the exercises, make sure that they're clear for you guys to perform. And if I have maybe any other issues in terms of what the purchasing group is here or there, or the issuing plant versus the receiving plant. Okay, besides that, all done from our side. Kirill, I'm going to make you a presenter. And I'm going to make sure also if anyone else is here, I also see Vidya, so I'm adding her as well. And the last check is for Jack, but I see Jack.
Hi.
Yeah.
Good morning,
hello,
everyone.
hello, Vidya. Good morning.
Good afternoon, actually.
I want to put evaluation in the chat.
Yes, thanks, Daniel. So is that already there, or we're supposed to? I think you shared it with me, probably.
I'm going to place it right now.
Okay, sorry, because it broke up and I didn't hear what you were saying. All right, so please, yes, take a look at the link that Daniel is about to share in the chat and make sure that you submit the evaluation for this session as well. Anything you can tell us will always help. And then from there on, I just give the floor to Kirill or Vidya, whoever's taking over today.
Thank you, Brian. I would start today. The discussion today we would like to offer for a sort of discussion and to present to you the recent issuances from the Global Asset Management Policy Service on the strategic guidance for property management, performance monitoring and reporting, and the let me know if you can see the slide.
Yes, right. We can.
Thank you. So basically, following our discussion yesterday on the audit observations and recommendations, we would like to, and of course, building on the previous day where Virya talked about the policy development and guidance, we would like to discuss today the strategic guidance on property management, performance monitoring and reporting, which was issued on 9th of March by memorandum from our director, and the supplemental instructions for preparation of IPSA's financial reports for the volume 2. These are the peacekeeping missions, which was issued by a memorandum dated 26th of March. So these two documents I will share after the discussion, so you can also share them with the colleagues in case they have not seen them by now. So the strategic guidance. The strategic guidance document is issued annually. So this is an annual strategic guidance. It includes the strategic priorities for property management. It defines the performance management framework, the key performance indicators you are aware of, how are they managed, monitored, and what are the reporting timeframes. In line with the performance trends based on the performance reports that we receive every quarter and based on the audit recommendations, the three main or key strategic priorities for the organization in the area of property management are defined in the strategic guidance, and these are namely, first, the strengthening of the stewardship of United Nations property while gaining efficiencies and economies of scale. This priority very tightly links to the role of the United Nations of UNGSC, especially in terms of managing the global surplus, making best use of the SDS versus sourcing from systems contracts and other procurement exercises within, of course, the global clearinghouse role. And of course, it tightly links to the activities that the UNGSC performs in terms of support to missions for startup and liquidations and any mission transformation activities. Number two, to mainstream the IPSAS accounting standards for PPE and inventory into the property management business processes in Umoja environment. Colleagues, you are aware that we are in IPSAS, or we adopted IPSAS in the peacekeeping effective July 1st, 2013. And we have operated in Galileo environment for a number of years, up until 2017. The key challenge that we have been dealing with after 2017 is to operationalize and stabilize the property management processes in Umoja environment, and to make sure that we have capacity and we have necessary roles to deal and address all asset and inventory management issues in Umoja. And the third priority, which we also discussed a little bit yesterday in relation to the audit observations, is to work towards establishment of the common approach for property management and its financial reporting. And this is in addition to us having roles and being trained and understanding our responsibility in Umoja. It's the key element here is to make sure that we have this cross-functional view, that we understand the end-to-end process, and we understand what are the implications from us, from our actions, and what are the requirements for the other disciplines in terms of expectations and implications for us. So this is very important aspect. We discussed briefly the requirement for us working coherently with finance colleagues, with supply chain management colleagues, with property management colleagues, and of course with service delivery and technical sections, because after all, everything is to be working smoothly in Umoja, which is very highly integrated. And I just had the chance to look at your last slides. I mean, everything we touch has implications for assets, inventory, supply chain, or finance. So this is the priority, and this is what we are trying to really embrace going forward. Now, what are the key topics or the key themes in the strategic guidance? Number one, the key new development this year is that we have extended the strategic guidance to all entities. This is mandated activity to our service within the global, within the management reform. We are extending the same level of oversight and support to all entities. And our priority right now, along with working with you guys, with peacekeeping on the year-end preparations for this financial year, is to extend the framework and the performance monitoring to the offices away regional commissions and tribunals. And we are reaching out to them and working with them to make sure that that they get gradually the same level of expertise and maturity of the performance monitoring and reporting. We retained the scalable approach, meaning that large peacekeeping missions and service centers like UNGSC are reporting, self-assessing and reporting on all performance metrics included in this strategic guidance. The medium and smaller political missions have a limited scope, considering that they have probably lesser expertise and lower level of staffing, but also considering that their operations may be not that comprehensive as the ones in the peacekeeping missions. And of course, for the offices away and regional commissions, we are starting with an even smaller scope. This year, we are focusing on metrics and areas related to accountability, and gradually expanding into stewardship and other aspects related to stock management, sort of to ensure that we have this smooth transition and implementation. For the peacekeeping missions and also for UNGSC, we maintain the Property Management Performance Index. This index has become a indicator of achievement for the RBB, resource-based budgeting process. So we will continue and we maintain it. We have introduced some changes to fine-tune the way of allocating points, but it will remain, and we will continue working and monitoring and reporting on the performance index quarter-over-quarter and for the financial year as a whole. I wanted to briefly touch upon the role of the UNGSC and the Office of Supply Chain Management, which we tried to lay down in the strategic guidance, acknowledging that it is still in development, but also being mindful that UNGSC is playing a vital role in the management of global asset surplus, in the clearinghouse, and in the startup liquidation support activity. So we have laid down this in the strategic guidance, and we have provided for the role of UNGSC for monitoring and utilizing the global surplus, the mission support and mission liquidation, the clearinghouse role, and of course the management of the global asset pool. In the strategic guidance, we also outlined the reporting responsibilities for each entity, and in there we have put a requirement for each entity to submit their self-assessment to both the Global Asset Management Policy Service, our colleagues in Office of Supply Chain Management, the Enabling and Outreach Service, and of course the UNGSC, in order to enable playing these roles that are also mandated to the GSC. So while this is still being sort of solidified, we are engaging with all the entities to make sure that we work in this common platform involving Office of Supply Chain Management, UNGSC, ourselves, and each entity, of course. The next, I wanted to briefly talk about the supplemental closing instructions, which tackle the key management actions and the requirements for preparation of IPSA's financial reports for the financial year 1920. The supplemental closing instructions govern all the aspects, starting from the delivery principle, asset categorization, capitalization, definition of useful lives, and definition of the recognition points. Most of these processes have been well defined and are sort of just re-emphasized during this year's issuance. Here on this slide, I wanted to touch upon issues that are new, or new requirements that we have included in this year's instructions. Number one, we are expanding the focus on physical verification activities from purely capitalized assets, capitalized equipment, to also include real estate and infrastructure assets. So we, throughout the VTCs and the communications with the peacekeeping missions and RSC and UNGSC, of course, we are establishing the framework for this, and we're looking into documenting the physical verification structure assets, intangible assets, where they are for now manually outside of the system, considering that these assets are not so numerous. They are limited in number, but they're usually very valuable. Then, in addition to that, important activity is related to the validation and ensuring that the functional locations in the real estate portfolios are valid and up to date. The functional locations were established at the time when we were decommissioning Galileo and moving to Umoja in 2017. And it's important that these functional locations are maintained and properly updated. It's specifically or particularly a problem if a mission is reconfiguring, where new locations are established physically, but not really in the real estate portfolio, and vice versa. If the mission is reconfiguring and closing locations, but those locations are not decommissioned. So we are asking all the peacekeeping missions and, of course, other entities to look at their functional locations and real estate portfolio and establish framework within the entity to make sure that these portfolios are maintained. Impairment test, similarly to the first point, we are also looking into conducting impairment test or extending the impairment test and reviews from purely capitalized equipment to also include real estate and infrastructure assets. This has always been a requirement under the financial reporting for the year end, but it has not really been strongly let's say mainstreamed into the property management processes. This is new development, and we are working with the counterparts in the missions to make sure that this takes place. The inventory is actually not new, but I just wanted to emphasize this, that there is no segregation between financial and non-financial inventory, and all consumables and supplies in stock are going to be reported as inventory at the end of the financial year. And therefore, the requirement for physical counts, and this time, during the last quarter, also the requirement for additional physical count of high-value materials. A observation and an issue that came across during the last audits for the peacekeeping relates to reserves. Colleagues, you are aware that we have fuel reserves in the large missions which are maintained outside of the system of record because of the contractual arrangements as they are maintained by the contractors. This is specifically related to fuel in the large missions, but we came across that this may be applicable also to other types of materials, specifically reserves of rations and water that are in some entities maintained by the contractors. They are paid for, and the contractors are obliged to maintain them for sole use by the entity, by the mission. However, these reserves do not get recorded in Umoja because they are not maintained by us. It's important that these reserves are also captured, and we are asking all entities to notify us if such modality exists so we can evaluate it and make sure that this is recorded. In some instances, such reserves may be material, and we would like to really capture and evaluate that. Assets under construction, this area appears to be very important as most of the missions, especially the peacekeeping missions, have large assets under construction, mainly for real estate and infrastructure assets. As we briefly talked yesterday, these assets under construction are valued since 2018, are evaluated based on the actual cost approach, which requires that all issuances from inventory or labor cost or even COE, troops, and equipment cost are properly captured and recorded on a monthly basis. So we will be introducing more aggressive monitoring on this to ensure that the cost of the assets under construction are properly captured and recorded. Last but not least, This year, we have expanded the quality assurance measures and the checklist. And what I'm continuously communicating to our colleagues and the counterparts is to make sure everyone who is involved in the fixed asset management, inventory management, and preparations for the year end, to make sure that that he or she gets familiar with the quality assurance checklist, as there are new additional checks which require some prior attention and work before the end of June, so that at the end of the financial year, those checks can be confidently marked as completed. And this is all I wanted to discuss today. Brian, colleagues, if there are any questions, either resulting from what I presented or from the discussions in the training today, please, we're here, and I see Vire is also here if there is a need for us to respond.
Sure thing. Thank you very much for your presentation. Let's see if anyone has a question. Now is the moment. Jack, I also see you there, so I'm adding you as a presenter too.
As Joe here, just a comment, Carol, on the clearinghouse activities at GSC. With regard to the new matrix on LPAs, which has gone up to $1 million. So that may affect how the clearinghouse activities will be moving in the future.
Yes, Joe, this is a very good point, and certainly I think there is a potential for us in GAMS and you colleagues in both in all the areas in the Global Service Center to continue working together. And I'm also aware, Jack has briefed us that there is very strong support for that from your director. So certainly we shall work together to make sure that these processes, both in the GSC and at our end, are synchronized and we support each other.
So, Joe, this is Jack. Good afternoon, everyone. Maybe I didn't understand the question exactly. How you're linking requests for local procurement authority, as I heard it, with the clearinghouse role? What is the linkage there exactly? Over.
Well, before emissions, if you were buying vehicles, they would go through the clearinghouse to see what's available in SDS that could be moved as a cost saving, things like that. Now that the fact that emissions can buy anything up to $1 million, a lot of equipment will not go through Brindisi for checking. There is exceptions, of course, for armoured vehicles and other commodities, but not a lot. Okay,
I understand the question. So yeah, that's a little bit out of our purview. Obviously, we're dealing with property management matters, which mainly relate to disposal and financial reporting. But I take your point that there is a link ultimately between financial reporting and procurement activities and budgeting, and they all are linked at some point. So I think we'll flag that as a point or a question. And yeah, as Carol mentioned, we'll work with you on that. I'm not sure I have an exact answer in terms of how our processes would strengthen your role on the front end in terms of procurement, but we'll certainly chew on that and be prepared to discuss it more in the future.
Yeah, just to add, Jack, it's been raised at headquarters anyway, and it's been raised very strongly by our director. But they made the changes anyway to the LPA threshold up to $1 million. So who knows where that will lead us in the future in relation to many things, including standardization of what we've been doing over the last many years.
Yeah. Joe, may ask a sort of further question on this, just to understand also Does GSC also get involved in the clearance of LPAs in any way? How that process works in, let's say, when the mission is asking for local procurement authority, do you guys get involved in any way in providing clearance for that?
Okay, if Nicole is there, he's part of the team that deals with this. He may be able to give you a more definitive answer. But there has been a lot of changes because of that matrix, but maybe Nicole can update you a bit better if he's there.
Yes, I'm here, Joe. Thanks for this. Actually, yes, we are involved since the guidance promulgated back in November 2019 and modified in March. See the GSC as an entity, the first line ahead where the missions and other entities, secretariat entities, do request local procurement authority. We are collecting these requests. There's a preliminary analysis that include the availability and the proposal to the requesting entities of available inventories, both SDS, surplus everywhere, or other inventories. This preliminary scrutiny plays the role of, let's say, triggering the clearinghouse function. That's where the question from Joe comes. So after this preliminary scrutiny, we do forward the request to procurement division, and is procurement division granting or not granting or denying, if is the case, the local procurement authority. So with the modification of the threshold from $50,000 to $1 million and the amendment of the strategic goods and services matrix, excluding some, let's say, equipment, some type of categories that before had reached a certain level of harmonization, if not standardization, this could lead to the issue of, let's say, breaking this standardization. Vehicles, or standard vehicles, LPVs. Prior to the reform back in March, actually 1 month ago, all the requests for vehicles were subject to LPA. Now the threshold has been brought up to 1 million. So any requesting entity that would like to acquire vehicles, LPVs, just as an example, up to 1 million, can proceed with the solicitation. That's the fear, right? That's the role of clearinghouse. Could be affected somehow.
So this means that up to $1 million, the entity is not mandated to come and ask for local procurement authority.
There's a matrix and a threshold that is different for that actually depends on the category, of course, and the relevance, I guess, of the acquisition. But on top of this, all these, let's say, requests for local procurement authority triggered literally the role of clearinghouse. So the SDS unit, the global asset management cell, were in the position to scrutiny these requests, actually playing the role of clearinghouse function, using the contact that, let's say, the instance that the missions were raising through the LPA process. So now, if they're not obliged to ask, they will proceed as they like.
Yeah,
that's our, let's say, fear. I think I can share I can speak for Joe as well. We discussed on this, so we have a common view on this. Over. Okay.
Yeah, I won't say much more except to say we fully understand and appreciate the issue. Not really directly within our bailiwick per se, but certainly related. So we'll discuss amongst ourselves if or how we can assist. Thanks.
So,
okay. Yes, thank you, colleagues. I was just wondering if maybe somebody else wanted to jump in last minute. Kirill, I don't know if you wanted to say something to me.
No, just wanted to exactly what you said. If there are any other questions.
Okay, let's see. Anything else?
I had a question for the group, Daniel. I know it's late on a Friday. I'm sure people want to start their weekends, but I do have some questions. I'll call them concerns, if you want to call them that, about the sheer amount of work that's required to fulfill some of these requirements for IPSAS reporting, which Kirill mentioned. I mean, it's just a quick 30-minute look, but there was a lot in there, and I don't know if we have some missions on the call. I think we do. If there's any specific concerns where missions are genuinely struggling trying to fulfill certain requirements, we'd like to know what those are, and kind of a quick, informal, and no, no fear of repercussions of just identifying, yeah, these are our pain points. Because I think that's the purpose of the training, is it's got to be a two-way exchange, right? Not just us blathering on about what the requirements are. That's kind of, frankly, the easy part. The hard part is to hear back from you in terms of understanding what the pain points are. I have my own sense of looking at that list of what those might be. I personally think that maintaining the real estate portfolio for some of the missions might be a bit of a challenge. I'm sure there's others. So maybe not exactly on this call, but in other fora, I certainly would hope that we'd be able to hear back from missions on where the real struggles are. Over.
Thank you, Jack. So if anyone wants to make a last remark to what Jack was just commenting on now. And again, yes, we know it's Friday. We know it's 4:30. But if anyone has anything to say, let us know.
Oh, it's just Joe again. Jack, just an observation from what we've been doing over the last several years in liquidations. Write-offs and the KPI for write-off, in our opinion, my office, is just too long. It's too much. Maybe you should be looking at to maybe shorten it to speed up the process, and maybe somewhere along the line we could talk about forcing missions to have much more regular sales instead of falling off the cliff at the end of a downsizing or liquidation.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. That's much appreciated. Just to clarify, when you say you should shorten it, I think you mean the Umoja processes. Is that what you're referring to? You said the KPI was too long, but I think you mean the processes itself.
Yes. Yes. Sorry,
okay.
Jack. The KPI itself. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. It's good feedback. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joseph. So I think maybe we can call it a day here. I don't think anyone else is going to intervene. Again, thanks, Kirill, Jack, and Navidia. Everyone else for joining. It's been 2 hours and a half of a session. I appreciate that you guys are sticking around. If there's nothing else to add, a big thank you to all, and a very good weekend.
Thank you. Nice weekend.
Good weekend, everyone.
Ciao.
Thank you. Thank you, guys from New York.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao. Ciao.
Thank you.